Welcome to the LaunchFamily Podcast, where we make sense of modern parenting one real conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley, mom of six, former teacher, and your trusted friend helping you cut through the noise of today's parenting overload. If you've ever found yourself overwhelmed by your child's emotions or your own, you're not alone. Today's episode is all about building emotional awareness, co-regulation, and designing environments where families can thrive. I'm so excited to introduce Coleman Housefield, a father of three, emotional regulation coach, and partner of the Nature Lab, an outdoor homeschool enrichment program based in Colorado. Through his work with parents and his own journey from tech professional to educator and coach, Coleman helps families shift from reactive parenting to connected, intentional relationships. Coleman, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Jessica. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into all of your, really keen insights from your experiences across the landscape as a parent and a partner at a homeschool co-op or program. So,
Yeah,
can you share a little bit more about your personal journey as a dad and how did all of this kind of lead you to how'd you become an emotional regulation coach?
sure. I have to tell a story.
Love it.
My oldest daughter was a toddler, and it was the weekend, and we were in our backyard. And in Colorado, this would have probably been summertime because a butterfly came past. And as toddlers will do when they're experiencing all the things about the world for the very first time, she squealed with delight at seeing this butterfly and toddled after it. And what I remember from that experience was I had no emotional response. So I'm out there with my daughter. We're in the backyard together. It's a beautiful day in Colorado. She is squealing with delight at this thing in the world she's experiencing for the first time. And I did not have an emotional response to it. And initially, I didn't have an emotional response. She went about playing, and of course, I'm keeping an eye on her for safety and all the good things. But after that experience, I had this reflective moment that I realized, wait a minute, I feel like I should have had an emotional experience for what just happened, for my daughter, my toddler experiencing this moment of seeing a butterfly for the first time. But I didn't. And I really didn't know what was going on at the time, but I knew that I needed to go on this journey to figure out why, what was going on for me. Long story short, what I realized was becoming a dad and being around kids' emotions all the time was overwhelming for my own nervous system. And the only way I knew how to cope with that was to shut down my emotions, was to be numb. And so the problem is like when you shut down your nervous system and you just like I'm not going to experience emotion, it doesn't just mean like the difficult emotions like sadness and frustration and irritation and deep sleep deprivation, deep tiredness from, kids being up at night. But you shut down all the good stuff too, right? And so I couldn't experience joy or delight or yeah, just wonder at my daughter experiencing a butterfly for the first time. So I knew that I needed to I wanted something different. I wanted a different experience, but I didn't know how to experience my emotions in a healthy way and know how to regulate. And so that's what started me on this journey and how I eventually became an emotional regulation coach.
Wow. What was you mentioned this really kind of heartwarming and eye-opening moment at the same time with your daughter experiencing seeing a butterfly, but was there another turning point that helped you realize the impact that self-awareness has on parenting?
Yeah. So the next turning point for me was my two oldest are girls. So my daughters were in the bathtub getting a bath together. I think my oldest was probably 3 or 4. My youngest was 1 or 2. And they were playing and having a good time. And I noticed my oldest kind of starting to play a little bit more aggressively with my younger daughter. And I was really worried about her because she was 1 or 2 years old, 1 or 2 years old. They don't have a lot of body control. They think their bigger sibling is like the best thing in the whole wide world. They'll do anything for them. And so I was bathing them and I kept telling my oldest, hey, don't please don't stand up and do whatever game they were playing because the bathtub is slick. You could fall, you could get hurt. Long story short, um, they kept standing up because they loved it. And I'm just like trying to make space for them to have their experience, but also feeling nervous as a, new dad. I want to keep my kids safe. And my oldest, did something that pushed my youngest over, and she fell and, hit her face on the bathtub and started bleeding. And as a, new dad, I kind of panicked, and I remember losing my temper and yelling. I raised my voice, absolutely terrified, both my girls. But it was like this really strong sense of safety and protection that I felt to keep my kids safe, and all of a sudden they weren't safe anymore. It was my fault, is what I felt. I took responsibility for it. But it absolutely terrified them because I lost my cool and yelled. And that was another turning point that made me realize, like, oh, I'm the adult. Like I'm the big person in the room. They're the little people. They're counting on me to keep them safe, not just physically, but also emotionally. And I absolutely violated that. I terrified them with raising my voice and yelling and getting upset about my oldest hurting my youngest. And that was a real turning point for me where I was like, I've got to figure out how to regulate. Like I've got to figure out how to things like this can happen, and I know how to respond in a way that keeps everybody safe, not just physically, but also emotionally.
I think that that's something that we don't necessarily think about, right? Especially when it comes through the lens of like safety of like, I told you not to do that, right? Or like,
Yeah.
if something is an urgent threat to health or safety, right? Like we kind of just jump in, I think just innately of like this is the concern, but then
Hmm.
also not realizing the way that we do that can also have implications on how they are then processing it of like, oh, now there's more anxiety that's happening, or oh
That's
my God,
right.
dad gets mad when I get
Hmm.
hurt. So then if you get hurt, is my dad gonna come back? Like, are you gonna
Hmm.
get mad if he got mad at you? I mean,
Yep.
we do that with our children too. Like we have 6 children, and there's just complexities within the relationships of, I think when it comes to safety and how those are, how those conversations are also navigated, where they understand the
Yeah.
severity of the situation, but
Yep.
also think, okay, this is where I can make a mistake is with my parents, and they're going to help
Hmm.
me process through this versus
Hmm.
having something that's punitive that I have to then, resolve on my own in the future.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
And so as I went down this road of like, how I got to figure this out, I got to educate myself, I got to get better at this. What I learned was the nervous system doesn't know the difference between emotional safety and physical safety.
Mm.
Our
Whoa.
nervous systems just know that we're not feeling safe, that we're not actually in a safe place, that there's danger, fight or flight, cortisol into the system, right? Like all the things that you hear about. We don't know the difference. And especially as kids, they don't actually have, because their little brains and bodies are developing, they're not fully developed yet. They certainly are not going to be able to understand, oh, dad's upset because of our physical safety. No, no, no. They're just feeling unsafe because dad raised his voice and now they're emotionally feeling unsafe. But again, we use those terms because we understand the difference. Your nervous system doesn't. Your nervous system's just like you're either safe or you're not. So
It's super eye-opening too, right? Like we're forming and guiding and shaping our little humans. We have the vocabulary and the life experience to be able to understand how these are different and yet similar, but at the same
mhm,
their body's reacting the same way no matter the context, and
that's
they don't
right.
have the experience to be like, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. So I
Hmm.
love that perspective that you bring in there too. That's also based in research. I want to chat a little bit more about how we went from, dysregulated dad to now, nature lab.
Hmm.
So tell us about the work that you do there and how did it come to life, and, really what makes it so special?
Sure. So my sister and my wife tried to get our kids, so my nieces and nephews and my own kids, into forest school here in Colorado Springs, because that's the experience we wanted to have for our kids. We knew we were going to live in town. We weren't going to live out of town and be on acreage, but we wanted our kids to have this outdoor education experience. They were on the wait list for a year. And my sister and my wife decided, you know what? Let's start our own. Let's just give other homeschool families the experience that we want to have for our kids. Now, what makes it special is it's the only farm and forest school in town. So forest schools are more common. Farm and forest schools are less common. So the farm piece is the actual like farm animals and the gardening and the growing things and that side of things. So that makes it special. I think it's also special because it offers city kids a way to connect with the outdoors and nature without having to live on acreage. And so parents who value that and want their kids to have that experience, they don't have to go buy 5 acres and like become homestead farmers or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Well, how fun. And what a journey too of like now you're actually serving other families and helping
We are.
their children, which is an incredible journey.
Yeah.
Really full circle. Well, when it comes as we kind of come back to this conversation about like emotional regulation, both for ourselves and for our children, you had mentioned like this idea of like the physical safety also being connected to emotional safety for kids. What are some more of those like parenting challenges or situations or scenarios that might be playing out in our daily life where we may be more apt to feel that dysregulation in ourselves?
Yeah. So I mentioned it, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's come back to it and unpack it a little bit more. Kids' brains and bodies are literally in development. They're incomplete. Right? When they're born, when they're toddlers, when they're in elementary, middle school, we know this, right? The science is clear. They're incomplete. They do not have the skills or the faculty that we have as adults. And so it's normal for them to be dysregulated. That's actually like a normal state. Uh, for me, and I think a lot of parents feel this way, I was like, what's wrong with you? Right? Like again, I was very focused on the physical safety for my kids. I provided shelter, I provided food, I provided a warm bed to sleep in. I am here all the time, making taking care of you. Um, i- why are you throwing a tantrum? Why are you whining? Why are you right? Like, why are you having these what I would have called at the time negative emotions? And the answer to that question is it's because they're supposed to. It's because their bodies and their brains are developing and they don't actually have all the skills that we have or all the faculty. I should even say, like the ability to develop the skills that we have because everything is in motion. And we actually have really good research now that would tell us that at some points, their emotional capacity outpaces their physical. And so, when they're just like very emotional, kids go through those phases where you're like, oh my gosh, why is everything just a giant emotional experience for this child? It's just a new development phase. Literally, their brain and their body just hit a new development phase, clicked into it. And unfortunately for you, the physical body is, as the parent, the physical body is lagging behind.
We just ride the wave of whatever's coming. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I think, that's one of the challenges. So, right, we, as parents, we are in a home with a bunch of dysregulated humans. That's a difficult environment to be in, especially if you don't have the tools or the skills to know how to regulate yourself and help co-regulate your kids.
I mean, make the case for learning how to regulate yourself right there. It's like, if you don't got the skills, like you're in survival mode, right? Like, how
That's
are we
it.
going to help our kids get out of it if we're also not able to fully function? Uh,
Yeah.
what a great and powerful illustration, which I love that we have a little bit of humor because it is just crazy.
You
Like,
have to. You
tough.
have to have humor, Jessica. You
Yeah.
must. It's very important. Like, right? I mean, just this conversation we're having here where I'm saying they're supposed to be dysregulated. That sounds crazy. So you have to laugh about it because you're like, you mean I have to live with a bunch of dysregulated humans? Yes. If you're a parent, that's what you signed up, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, the eye-opening mouth on the floor, jaw on the floor is like, oh my gosh. Okay, well, it starts to make more sense then, right? Like we can come at
That's
it.
it.
There's tools out there to help me live with this, consistent steps
Yes.
of dysregulation with my children. So maybe
Yes.
what are some of those ways that we could practice like co-regulation? What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah. So to co-regulate with your kids, the first step is to learn how to regulate your nervous system, right? So the examples that I gave earlier where I was completely numb, not reacting to my daughter's delight and joy of the butterfly, and then losing my cool and yelling. Both of those are examples of me being dysregulated, my nervous system being dysregulated. So the first step in order to help a kid co-regulate is to regulate your own nervous system. And there are ways that you can do this. Some of the most common, there's lots of ways, and it's very personal. You can kind of play with the different tools and figure out which ones work best for you. But some of the ways to do that: deep breathing, meditation, learning how to, well, I use the term take the parenting pause. So when you're just feeling that dysregulation coming on, you are those strong emotions, you literally say in your head, it's time for a parenting pause. And frankly, it doesn't take long. You just need a few seconds. By the way, my wife and I would do this with our kids when they're dysregulated, when it's been maybe a tough day. We will say, hey, daddy just needs a minute. Sometimes they respect it, sometimes they don't. But it's the act of saying it out loud that helps me take that parenting pause, do some deep breathing, regulate my system. What a lot of us do is we pretend to be calm. Have you ever done this as a parent, Jessica?
I mean, are you, yeah, are you a parent if you haven't? I'm like, yes. I feel like last night I was at this exact moment. I'm like, maybe I should have just said, I need a minute.
Yeah, we pretend to be calm. And this is what I did. By the way, that was what that numbing experience that I was describing, that's what I was doing. I was pretending to be calm. I was pretending to be okay, but I wasn't. But I was pretending. And you're right. You're not a parent if you haven't pretended. Pretending is par for the course. So what we do is we pretend to be calm, but humans were designed to pick up on the signals from each other's nervous systems and react to them. So think about the last time it's not going to be hard for you because you're a parent, but people who aren't parents, sometimes tell them, think about the last time you were in the space with another adult who was dysregulated. Maybe they started yelling. Maybe they were calling names. What happened inside of you? Your nervous system was responding to theirs, and their nervous system was dysregulated, and yours was like, we ought to be dysregulated because we got to get out of here, right? Like it's doing the fight or flight thing. This person's not safe. I got to go. So that happens all the time with our nervous systems when our kids are dysregulated. Our nervous system wants to unconsciously, this isn't a conscious choice we make, right? It wants to unconsciously respond. So to co regulate, your job is to feel that, notice it, and find your way back to a regulated nervous system, the real one, not the pretend calm one. Then, once you're in that space, you can turn the tables and use that same power where a dysregulated nervous system can dysregulate other people. You can use your regulated nervous system to help your kid's nervous system come down. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think what we maybe like a visual of like a mask is maybe like coming out to me through this conversation of like no matter who you are under the mask, it's not actually going to be hidden or like away just because you
Nope.
put something else on. And
Yeah.
like I do think, the kids pick up on everything. They're little sponges. Like developmentally, they're just soaking everything in. And my background is as an educator, and so I can speak from that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But they just soak everything in. And so even like, what are we subconsciously telling them then too if we're just pretending? Like, oh, I just need to pretend. I need to put on a mask because this is the way that I'm supposed to act or behave versus maybe we're teaching them to maybe get into bad habits too of not being able
Yes.
to regulate themselves because we're not actually modeling it with them or taking them through that journey. Instead, we're just like, oh yeah, everything's fine. Oh yeah, mom's great. Blah, blah.
Right.
That's
That's
probably
right.
not the truth.
It's not, here's the thing, they don't believe it.
And they can
'Cause
see it. They can see through it. They can see through it.
it's crazy, but our kids are very emotionally intelligent. I know that sounds crazy because they're often so dysregulated. But emotional intelligence has a bunch of different parts to it. Regulation is one of them. Some of the other parts is their ability to understand what's going on in the world around them based on their emotional intelligence, based on other people's nervous systems. And kids are actually incredibly good at doing that because they haven't yet gotten to that place where they focus so much on the verbal. They're still paying a lot of attention to the nonverbal cues. So let me give a story I think that helps really illustrate how co-regulation can work. The other morning, we're all having breakfast, the whole family at the breakfast table. My son comes to the table and he's kind of seemingly in a foul mood and he's kind of grunting, you know, just kind of not happy about it. Pushes his breakfast plate away from him, just kind of scowling, got a deep scowl on his face. And I can feel my nervous system starting to spin up, kind of almost like in defense of the environment. So it's like, hey, we're all having a great breakfast. You come in and that's what we do as humans. We shift the environment with our nervous system, with our mood, with how we decide to show up. We're having a great conversation, my wife and my daughters. He comes in and the whole environment shifts and I'm kind of upset about it. And I can feel myself kind of getting irritated, right? Just that my nervous system's responding to his. So I just took a minute, took the parenting pause, a couple of seconds, and like brought my nervous system back down to, oh, he's having a hard time. Like he's just having a hard time. It's not on purpose. All behavior for humans, one way to like keep it super simple is either a cry for love or love. Let's just like simplify all human behavior. It's a cry for love or love. All of our bad behavior, it's a cry for love. We want to be seen, we want to be loved. So I just brought my nervous system down first. I walked over to him, got up from my chair, walked over to where he sits, kissed him on the forehead, and I said, I love you, son. And then I just walked back and sat in my chair. And took a few minutes, but the scowl started to turn into a more neutral face. And then eventually he like pulls his plate back to him. He starts eating, he starts participating in the conversation. And what happened there is not a mystery. It's not magic. I'm not special. It was my nervous system was able to help him co-regulate. So instead of me letting that irritation just like go wild and be like, son, what's wrong with you? Straighten up. Have a better attitude. By the way, that's my natural reaction because that's how I was parented. Instead of that, what's that? Those are our defaults. So I just like bring my nervous system down. I let him know that I see him and that I love him. And frankly, I use very few words because the most important piece is the nonverbal. It's my regulated nervous system is taking care of his and showing him like, hey, you can come be with me in this regulated state. And he comes down. Now, for everyone who's out there listening to this podcast and thinking, there's no way that happens every time. You're right. It doesn't. This is not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
But what is true is the more you practice this with your kids, the more you're regulated and the more you use your nervous system that's regulated to help them co-regulate, the better they will get at responding to it because you're building neural pathways that they know are safe. And so humans, we are literally programmed for survival. We're literally programmed, if we're like, there's this option or this option, we just choose the safest one. And so when we have neural pathways that we know are safe, then we just keep going back to those. So that's an example of what co-regulation can look like. It's not complicated, but it does require us as the parents to learn the skills and use some tools that work best for us to regulate our nervous systems, because then our kids can use it to co-regulate.
Yeah, it's like the toolbox that's like infinite for the whole family, right? Like the more tools that for co-regulation that you have in your pocket, the more that they'll have to be able to regulate on their own.
Yes.
One of the things that we're dealing with this week is our children are going to vacation Bible school, and typically we homeschool. So mind you, like them being gone from the house for 5 hours a day is something that's a very big event in their lives.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And yesterday I was actually doing another podcast episode and I got a call from the children's director, and she was like, "Hey, your son, he's, having some anxiety or some stress or something that's going on." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll come up." And
Mhm.
drove across town to go get him.
Yep.
Only an hour into the whole experience, and like, "Okay, you can send him out over here." I was like, "Do you mind if I talk to him first?
Mm.
Kind of understand what's going on, how he's feeling,
Mhm.
Earlier in the day, we had actually gone I took my 3 oldest boys to go see a movie at the movie theater. So we went straight from the movie to Vacation Bible School.
Oh,
I was
yep.
like,
Yep.
"Oh, I'm thinking maybe he just needs a break." Like, he's just probably
Yep.
tired. He's 5 years old.
Smart.
That's a lot on a kiddo.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But I also know that he's been looking forward to it, and it's only a 5-day camp. And so I was like, I don't want him to feel like he's missing out if he asks to take a break.
Yes.
Um, and so we sat there, and the children's director, she came over. She's like, "Oh, his big brother came out and was talking to him too, and like asking how he was feeling." And I was like, "Oh, these questions are the same questions that I'm asking him. My son, my oldest son, is also trying to help co-regulate his younger brother."
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the beautiful
Yeah.
thing, I think, of all of that is like, okay, they do have tools. They also like throw fists at each other and jump off
Mhm.
walls and all the things too.
That's right.
Others do. But at the same time, it was like in those moments of feeling vulnerable, feeling a little weaker than
Mm.
normal, like
Yes.
that was one of those proud mom moments of like, okay, they can default to something else if mom's not.
Yes. Yes. That's
No.
so good.
Yeah,
That's
no,
so good.
carries the tune
Oh,
over from what you shared already.
what an example of the example that you and your husband have set for your kids, that your son, it sounds like the older sibling, was able to help his brother out when he was feeling dysregulated, when he was feeling uncomfortable. He's like, "Oh, well, I know what to do here because this is what we do in our family." Right. So, yeah. So that's a neural pathway, right? That's a highway he's built. He's traveled it. It's safe. He trusts it. And so he can go back to it.
Yeah, and that'll only just set them up for success. And like, there's no perfect. I love that point too. Of like, it is not like that every single time by any.
No.
But I think the more that we have been practicing it or have giving them language to describe also how they're feeling, which is huge for
Hmm.
the littles in our household. Um,
Hmm.
Mind you, my 5-year-old is number 3. So my he's got 3 younger siblings too. So we're like
Okay.
much in the peak of toddlerhood and
Yep.
the
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
which is super fun. But even just the language can feel empowering to them too, and it comes with like that practice piece of like, what does their new default become? If our
Yes.
default is how we were parented, then what is their default going to be for when they're parents, right?
That's
So
it.
I love that perspective. I want to bring in another kind of that kind of complicates the puzzle a little bit sometimes, which is
Yeah.
the partner. So how does becoming a parent kind of change the relationship between the partners? And what are some of those common challenges that, they face together as they're navigating parenting?
Yeah. It's going to sound potentially really simple, but um, I don't think we give it enough credit. So I'm going to say it. Which is when you're married without kids, there's just the two of you in the house. You are sharing your husband or your wife with no one. Maybe right, like friends or coworkers, but they don't live in the house. They're coworkers aren't like walking up to your husband and interrupting him when he's talking to you, right? Like, so I think something we sort of take for granted, we overlook, is like literally when you have kids, when you go from just the two of you to kids. Now someone else is in the house and the relationships are being shared. The space, the time, everything is being shared. And the more kids you have, the more sharing that needs to happen. And sharing is something that can be challenging for most people, but it's especially challenging for kids. So, one of the things that my wife and I experienced was when we had kids, and it was a very demanding season. Usually, well, they come and go all the time as the kids develop, but in the baby and toddler season in particular was pretty demanding. When she had some space from the kids, she wanted to be alone, and I wanted to be with her. She's an introvert, I'm an extrovert. And so these are some challenges that I was not prepared for. I think a lot of couples who get married, spend some time together before kids and then have kids that were not prepared for these challenges. How do we navigate sharing the relationships? And so, yeah, I think it's perhaps one of the most challenging things a relationship can go through is having children. Uh, because it's, I mean, right, the like, oh, you're my wife, I'm your husband. That's easy. It's so clear. But when you're like, oh, okay, so I have a wife, I have this child and this child and this child, and everybody wants to connect. Everybody wants to be in relationship. Everybody wants to spend different time with their father and their mother and their siblings. That's just a complicated system.
Yeah, and there's complexities, right? Because we're all like people too. Like even if we're raising the kids in the same household, they have their own interests, they have their own
Yep,
friend groups, they have their own extracurriculars. Like we think about, the complexity of, okay, you have, husband and wife or partner and partner, right? And then it's like, yes, you have your work lane where you have your friends and your colleagues at work, but they don't often intersect unless it's like a structured social gathering, right?
exactly. Yep,
Um, and then with the kids, it's like they're there all the time,
all
and
the
they're
time.
their own little unique critters running through the house.
Hmm. And
Um,
and sometimes, Jessica, here's an important, I think, lesson for couples who may be in that, like, we're struggling to have a really good relationship, husband and wife, because now the kids are in the picture. Sometimes what happens is we have babies, and babies are like all hands on deck. And then the babies become toddlers, and it's not quite as demanding, but it's still very demanding. And then they're no longer toddlers, and it's quite a bit less demanding. We don't often shift our expectations or our boundaries or our family rhythms with those developmental seasons. And so we're still, let's say, for example, thinking that we can't expect our elementary child to not interrupt mom and dad's conversation for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And so we don't have those expectations of them and we don't have those boundaries. And so then our relationship suffers because when's the last time we've had an uninterrupted conversation? And so we do have to, I think one of the challenges, like recognizing how capable your children are as they grow and develop and taking those small steps. Hey, mom and dad are going to have a conversation for 10 minutes. We're going to set a timer. We'd like for you to not interrupt. And unless it's an emergency. Emergency means blood. There better be blood. And we will come get you and connect with you and answer all of your questions and meet all of your needs when the timer goes off or whatever. I'm just, using kind of a silly example, but it's true because we don't often shift our expectations of our kids as they become more capable.
that's a great point too. And I mean, I get it too from the other perspective of people being like, "Oh my gosh, you have 6 kids. How do you do it all?" And I was like, "You have 1 kid. Like that to me seems very hard. Like you are there
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
all the
You're
time."
everything.
Yeah, like, I'm like, "Okay, well, at least they can go be busy with each other for, like, 30
Yep.
minutes or something while I can go have a
Mhm.
conversation if I need to."
Yep.
Of course, we are in that infant and toddlerhood stage too, where we're, like, right there all the time. Um, but, that is a really great point of, maybe even just setting those boundaries or having those expectations and then being able to even model that with a child, right? Of, "Hey, dad, just a minute. I know you just got home from work, but I'm having this conversation with, you know,
Yes.
his brother right now, and I will
Yes.
be right there."
Yep.
Um, and just showing that it's just the way that the whole household kind of runs and operates, and everyone's on the same level.
It's a
So
great point. It goes both ways. And Abby and I do that with each other. We'll tell each other, hey, just a minute. I want to finish this conversation with whatever child we're speaking to. So yeah, it's good to go both ways.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Great example. Well, what other strategies do you have that couples can use to support each other and stay connected during those parenting years? If you had to like summarize it, maybe to like top three.
Yeah, this is something I coach my clients on pretty regularly and something I write about and Abby and I talk about in our podcast. So I have these are my favorite top three. So the first one is throw away your manual for your spouse. So what I mean by that is whether we realize it or not, we all have a relationship manual for the people that we're in relationship with, a way in which we want them to treat us, a way in which we want them to behave, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. And there are two situations where a manual is appropriate. One is from a parent to a child. It is appropriate because you're sharing the house and the space, and they are not adults. So it is appropriate. And then from a manager or a boss to a direct report, it's appropriate that you have a manual for those situations. For everyone else who we as adults interact with, other adults, we should not have a manual for them. We should let them be who they are and make space for that. And it will just go so much better. So the first thing is like kids arrive on the scene and all of our differences as a couple, as two individuals who are married, all of our differences come to the surface. And we're like, well, why did you do it that way? You should be doing it this way. Why did you let them watch a movie? You should have taken them outside when you had them for free time or whatever. It's like we have all these manuals for how the other parent should parent, for how they should show up for the kids, what they should or shouldn't do. And I think a strategy that will help so many parents is just throw out the manual. Let the other person, let your husband or your wife be the mom or the dad they want to be. Now, what I'm not saying you shouldn't align on values and kind of overall strategy. But there's a lot of little things we get caught up on that bother us or that's different from how we would do it. And we want to let them be the parent that they want to be and bless that and be excited about it, that the kids are getting a different experience. They're getting a diverse parenting experience. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is take responsibility for your emotions. So as adults, we are responsible for our own emotions. We don't get to take credit for creating emotions for other people. We absolutely have to take credit for our actions and for how we show up and the consequences of those. But my wife does not get to make me feel a certain way without my permission and vice versa. So what can happen when you're sleep deprived and you're sharing relationship and connection with all these people in the house is, hey, when you did that, you made me feel fill in the blank. Angry. You made me feel rejected. You made me feel like I don't matter. No, that's not true. It's actually all of our feelings and emotions are things that we create, and we use other people's behavior to create them. But we actually create them for ourselves. And so we have to take responsibility. And if you do that, if you take responsibility and you say, actually, in my case, my wife is Abby. Abby did this thing. I'm telling myself a story about what she did. And the story I'm telling myself is making me feel like she doesn't care. But it's actually the story that I'm telling myself. It's not what she did. I could decide to think something different about what she did. And Abby and I will have these conversations. So one of the ways we try and take responsibility for our emotions is if we're feeling frustrated or maybe we're feeling some emotions about the other person that are negative, I will say, hey, when you did this, this is the story I'm telling myself about what you did. Can you help me understand your intent behind what you did? So take responsibility for your emotions. And the final thing is very counterintuitive, and it is take care of yourself. Like really, truly take care of yourself, because if you don't, you will not have anything to bring to the relationship. I can remember a season where Abby and I were young, new parents, and we really did not have the tools. We just frankly did not know how to take care of ourselves. We knew how to distract ourselves. We knew how to indulge. We knew how to entertain ourselves. Those are not the same thing as taking care of ourselves. And so we would, the grandparents would watch the kids and we would get time together, and it was just arguing and fighting. It was not connecting. It was not good. It was not positive. And that's because we were two people who were scraping the bottom of the barrel and did not have anything to offer the other person because we weren't taking care of ourselves. So you have to learn yourself, understand what feels like care to you, what feels like support, how you can support yourself, how you can take care of yourself. And there's lots of ways to do that depending on your personality and what you enjoy and what makes you feel safe and all those kinds of things. But two people who are taking care of themselves, they can connect. They can pour into each other. They can build a relationship. They can build something together. Two people who are scraping the bottom of the barrel, it's going to be very hard to do that.
That makes a lot of sense. And also is one of those places too where it's like if you're feeling like you're at the bottom of the barrel, right? Like knowing that there's hope out there, right? Like if you focus on
Mhm.
yourself, not only are you getting better for you, but also better for your children and your spouse
That's it.
and all of the
That's it.
family dynamics and friends and
Mhm.
coworkers and things.
Mhm.
And those seasons can feel very isolating. So I think
Mhm.
to those that are listening right now, being like, oh my gosh, this seems so overwhelming because I can't do this right now. Like I know I need
Mhm.
to, but I can't. Like
Mhm.
know that there is hope, there's support out there for you to be able to climb out. Like we're all on that's the whole premise of
That's
Launch
it.
Family is like how can we better help parents connect with their kids and feel joy in parenting, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That's right.
I just want to like put that little piece in there too because I've been at the bottom of the barrel. I don't know how far out of the barrel I even am right now. Like I'm 6 months postpartum and
Yeah.
they're definitely harder than others.
Mhm.
And just know that you're not alone in whatever stage or place that you're in. There's other parents out there that are in navigating it all too.
Yeah, and humans want to help other humans. That's, like, natural for all of us. It's our instinct is to reach out and support someone, and so, yeah,
Yeah.
don't do it alone.
Yeah. And an encouragement too for those of you that are not at the bottom of the barrel. Like call, check in on your friends, please. Call
Mhm.
your family.
Mhm. Yes.
If you're an aunt or uncle, like call your niece or nephew. Like even if it's not a
Yep.
structured event, like
Yeah.
family is
Absolutely.
too.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for that. Before we wrap up, we do have a few questions from our Launch Family participants during a segment that we call Ask Emmy, which Ask Emmy is our AI parenting coach. And so I would love to get
Cool.
your real, human perspective on one of these questions here
Okay.
today. The question is, I feel like I lose my temper more than I want to. How can I stay calm with my kids and spouse?
So good. So the first thing I'll say is we often think that the temper is the problem. The problem is I'm losing my temper, but it's not. Like, feeling angry and kind of like feeling that dysregulation and your nervous system just kind of ramping up. And it's some people it's heat inside, some people it's really tight and constricted. Um, that is not a problem. The only problem is what you do with it. And most of us, unfortunately, have learned to resist, avoid, or react to it. Well, the reaction is where you lose your temper and you do something that you regret, right? Like me yelling, raising my voice. Resistance is just like, no, I'm not going to feel that. Okay, so that's that numbing that I was describing. Avoidance is like, I'm going to scroll social media. I'm going to do something else. Avoidance is really distraction. I'm going to distract myself so I don't have to feel like I'm about to lose my temper. I'm afraid of it, so I'm going to run away from it. The answer is to feel it without judgment and without reacting to it. So just feel it in your body. Again, this is a skill that everyone can develop. You feel the heat, the constriction, and then there's different ways, like we talked about deep breathing, meditation, going for a walk, telling your kids you need a minute if you're a parent. There's different ways that you take the parenting pause. Just give yourself the space to require you to do nothing. You don't have to react, you don't have to respond. Your kids can keep whining or yelling or whatever they're doing. And you just like pull in and feel it and just let that emotion be there. And what's crazy is when we actually feel our emotions, they dissipate because emotions are the body sending signals to the brain. Okay, we're all very familiar with the way thoughts work, right? Thought happens in our brain and it sends a signal to our body, and then the body responds. I'm going to write in my journal. Starts in my brain, goes to my body, and my hand starts writing. Great. We're all very familiar with that. The same thing happens the other direction. That's what emotions are. Emotions are signals that start in the body and communicate back to our brain. And when we feel it using our brain, right? We take our brain and we focus on it, we feel it. The body goes, okay, I think we're okay. Like he's not running away from it. He's not avoiding it. And also he didn't just lose it. So I think we're okay. I think we're going to be okay. And so that is the best way to think about losing your temper is when you feel it, just practice noticing. Like notice before you get to that reaction of losing your temper. And then just pause, just like freeze the frame.
Mm. It's like rewriting what losing your temper means, right? Like losing your temper meaning like, okay, I no longer have the temper, right? Like we want
Right.
to lose that.
That's exactly right. We don't want to feel anxiety and we don't want to feel angry anymore. Those aren't useful. Here's the thing though. We can't get into it on this podcast. We don't have time, but here's the thing though. Emotions have so much wisdom.
Mm.
If we'll pay attention to them, feel them, and learn from them. So the first step is to feel it without reacting or avoiding. The second step that I work with my coaching clients on is what can you learn from you feeling angry about this particular situation or circumstance? And often they learn something really important about themselves. Oh, loyalty is really important to me. Noise, maybe a particular frequency or just lots of noise, it feels overstimulating. Like I just get dysregulated really easy when I'm in a space with a lot of noise. We learn important things about ourselves and then we can show up differently once we know those things.
Man, that is so powerful. And I think one of those statements that will have us all thinking far beyond the episode of like, oh, well, what can I learn from this? Right? Like that's the never ending question.
Uh-huh.
Um, so Coleman, I just really want to thank you so much for the powerful and refreshing conversation. You know, you reminded us that parenting isn't about perfection, it's about presence, right? And how we show
That's
up
right.
in those moments. And so um the way that we can understand and regulate our own emotions also has that trickle effect within our communities, our children, our work environments. And so how we can really be focused on creating that safety and clarity for our kids that they need in order to thrive.
Yeah,
To our
that's right.
listeners, you know, if you want to hear more about Coleman's coaching or Nature Labs outdoor learning model, be sure to check the show notes for all of the links on ways to connect. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Launch Family Podcast. We're here for every step of your parenting journey.